So what does my partner think as to the amount I spend on games? So for those that don't know, over the last few months, I've spent a decent chunk of money. In fact, I did actually put together a spreadsheet last week for purposes of how much I've spent, and it's just a little bit over £6,000 in the last few months, which, to be fair, isn't awful. I did kind of expect it to be more than that. The short answer to this question is she's really not bothered at all, due to the fact that I don't spend money on anything. And when I'm buying these games and things like that, I'm using them as well to make money back. Like, for example, Kuon, which was 620 quid, within the first week of the videos that I made on that, those videos made £1,500. So there was a good return on investment there. You also have to add into the fact that everything that I buy, being as it's for content, is then a business expense on top of that. So I really am not a big spender. I don't like spending money. I'm someone that will, like, say we have a takeaway. I'm not spending a quid to go large, because no, absolutely not. I have been wearing the same pair of shoes. I have one pair of trainers, and I've been wearing them for over 5 years. It might be more than that. Partner was in her second year of uni, and now she's a senior consultant in her job. So it's got to have been at least 5 years. If you've ever, you know, the videos where I'm like wandering around going to various different CEXs and it's bad weather and I talk about how I'm like struggling to walk, it's often because there's just no tread on the bottom of my shoes and it's wet. Like tomorrow we're going to Birmingham to see Paul Smith, comedian, and the weather's been a bit awful this week, and I'm willing to bet I'm going to be slipping and sliding all over the shop. She's been telling me to buy new shoes for like well over a year, and I keep meaning to, but then I'm just like, but I've got shoes. I don't need to buy shoes. And then when it comes to like clothes and things like that, I just don't care either. Most of my clothes, to be real with you, I don't pay for. Like, for example, these shirts. Every shirt you guys ever see me wearing is usually a My Protein shirt. And I get those for free because of my sponsorship. So I don't spend money on really anything. It's just games, and those can be justified through being a business purchase, and they make the money back. And in reality, even if they didn't make me the money back, it's at the end of the day, it would be my money and my decision. My goal long term is to pay the house off, like within the next few years, and be mortgage free pretty early in life would be the goal. And I'm still saving towards that all the time. So I don't spend money on like anything. Trust me, she's, of the two of us, she's the big spender. She's got like handbags that cost more than Kuon, coats that cost more than Kuon. People on TikTok especially often think that TikTok, it generally has a bit of a younger demographic, and they struggle to understand that women earn money too. She's got a pretty good job herself, so yeah, she's got her own money and can buy her own nice things, and can't moan about me buying myself nice things. Yeah, I'd get her in to voice her own opinion, but she's on a work call in her office now, and even if she was in here, her answer would just be, yeah, I don't care, because I don't drink. Well, I do drink. I just don't have opportunity to drink. I don't go out drinking. Like, I could probably count. Actually, I know exactly. I've drank once this year, and it was back in April for a friend's wedding. Not because I'm anti-drinking, because of the whole fitness thing, but just because the opportunity doesn't arise. So I don't spend money there. We might have one takeaway a week because, again, I'm fitness oriented, so that wouldn't be very conducive. We shop at Aldi, so the cheapest supermarket we possibly can. I don't spend on anything really, because again, my whole goal is pay a house off. So here's some social media advice, I suppose, because we always do a bit of this in a lot of these videos. When you get into social media and it becomes a job, you should be well aware that there are going to be peaks and troughs, and at some point you're going to earn less than you have before. For a lot of people, social media isn't often a forever thing, and for a lot of people, you probably wouldn't want it to be anyway. So you should use the advantages that it has given you in life while you still can. We have got nearly 20 years worth of evidence to the point that nobody lasts forever, and people make very silly decisions. The amount of young dudes that get tons of money through their social media stuff and then just piss it all up a wall or wrap it around a tree with a nice car, rather than, using it on something that's forever or like gonna put them ahead in life. Like, for example, a lot of you guys that watch this are my age or older. You might remember the Machinima Respawn days. Some of those guys were earning such extreme amounts of money that they could have set themselves up for life at literally 18 years old, but they didn't, because they just, I don't know, they didn't have the thought process. But when my social media started blowing up years ago, and I started making decent money from it, I was like, right, this ain't gonna last forever. I need to make sure that I use this leg up in life to keep me legged up. Does that make sense? So, yeah, hope that answers that one. This is another good one. Will I stop collecting when the game room gets full? Honestly, this is a real problem that I have. I've had a few times this year in that I go through phases with the collecting where sometimes I'm buying tons of stuff, other times I'll go weeks without buying much. I'm at the phase now where I kind of buy the expensive stuff because it gives me something to do. Because I'm kind of out of the cheap stuff. I think, hang on, I kind of can't see. I bought enough games this year that I think I've worked my way through all of the like less than £10 games that I'm usually after. So I can't bulk buy those anymore. So realistically, the shelves don't get too much fuller too quickly now, but they are still pretty full. Like I've got no more space for PS2 or PS3 right now. I've got space for PS4 and PS5, and maybe 360, but I'm not exactly after 360 anymore. And that is about it. Like on this shelf here, we've got the space at the bottom for some more PS5 stuff as and when they come out. There'll be at least 4 more added there in the next couple of weeks between 2 more Yakuza games and games that are actually, releasing. And then since we ditched all of those, I freed up another shelf, which is now a quarter full already. And that made some more space. But realistically, yeah, there's no more room in my room for more stuff. And when it is full, I don't quite know what I'll do. Because there is definitely not another room that I can expand into, that's for sure. Something that I would kind of love to do, but it could definitely not be in this house because there's no space, is like an outbuilding. I think a lot of collectors, from what I gather from their videos, their like room is not necessarily a room inside their house. It's like an outbuilding they've custom built, so they don't run out of space. But the way I've always put it is the office that I'm sat in now is my office. It's not necessarily just a games room. Like function over form is typically the move here. Like realistically, this desk, I could lose this desk and the stuff that's on it and make myself way more space for collecting games, because I kind of made this whole setup a little bit redundant because I connected my PC that's behind the big screen over to the TV that's over there, and that I very rarely sit here. I'm sat here for the sake of this video because it's comfy. But this is all stuff I could lose and create more space with, but it's functional. I like having a desktop setup just in case I need it. This room is my workspace, whereas I think for a lot of collectors it's their like chill space, I think a lot of collectors that when they finish work for the day, they go and sit in their games room and relax and decompress. Whereas my games room is doubled as game room and office. Work is done in here. Videos, recording, editing, all that sort of thing. So it has to stay practical first and foremost above like anything else. So there's no real space for more stuff. I already put more stuff on the walls and around than I ever thought I would. Like that shelf over there, I already didn't originally intend to have that there because for the sake of content I wanted at least one blank wall that I could stand against and not have like a theme in the background of any sort. But then that ended up happening infrequently enough that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to put more display there. And then it same comes to decorating the walls, like because obviously I make the fitness content too. In this room anyway, there's no real spot that I can stand or sit anymore that doesn't have something nerdy or gaming themed in the background somewhere, whether it be the Yu-Gi-Oh card frame there, the armory of controllers and handhelds, the Framer game with the God of War trilogy, the Dragon Ball Z posters. There's always something somewhere in the back of some shot, whereas before I at least had more space, so it's like I've already filled in more than the original plan was, and I like it. I really do like how much stuff is in here now, but there really isn't space for more stuff. I don't think I'll ever stop collecting. I think I would just come up with another way. But the good thing is that, like I said, I think I'm at the point now where I don't buy that many games. Rather than spending like 100 quid on 20, 30 games like I was doing months ago, now it's like 100 quid on a couple of games, so it's easier to slot those in the collection somewhere. So I don't think collecting will ever end, especially due to the fact that I'll always be buying new stuff as and when it comes out. But I always said that I was a gamer first and a collector second. Like I try to buy stuff I'm actually going to play or have played or will play. Like I've beaten over 100 games this year alone. So I don't think that collecting will ever necessarily end. I think it'll just come in waves. Like there's been waves now. Like sometimes I through July, I think I went for quite a while. There was a month at some point in the last few months where I barely bought anything because there was just not a lot to buy, and my list of things that I wanted was looking quite sparse. But I find ways to just expand it. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll play that because I like expand my horizons with things that I actually want to play, like I have been doing anyway. But Yeah, I hope that answered it. I don't think I'll ever stop, and I'll definitely never stop talking about games, that's for damn sure. Okay, so for this one, I've got you guys on a tripod so that I can talk and not stress my front delta out too much, holding the camera up like I always do. Uh, we're going to talk a little bit about fat loss. So I get a lot of questions to do with fitness whenever I do these Q&As, and I think I'm going to shove them at the end of each one of these videos because it's not something everybody's going to be interested in. But we got, what was the question? It's something related to fat loss, I know it was. Want to lose fat, but I can't stick to a gym regimen, any advice? First of all, okay, when my approach to a lot of things, and a lot of you probably realize this, is very data driven and very objective, and I do my best to be non-emotional, and I think that that is how you get the best results in nearly anything. Human emotion is something that will hold us back often, and it is difficult to separate human emotion because it's just part of what makes us who we are. But when you can do that, you get better results and you get them faster. There are a million different approaches to things, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, understand what causes fat loss. What causes fat loss, and this is a non-negotiable, this is not to be argued with. The only people that argue this are usually people that are trying to sell you a magic product because it makes them more money, or people that themselves have yet to be able to stick to it and therefore have never seen the results they want to see anyway. Or people that have achieved a result through a different method, but they don't actually realize it was the same method. Anyway, I'm just confusing you at this point. I'm going to keep it very basic and very simple to understand. This is how it works. You need to be in a calorie deficit. What that means is to be in a state where you are eating less calories than you need to stay your current body weight. That's going to be different for everybody based on height, weight, how much movement you do day to day, all that sort of thing, right? But the fact of life is that if you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose fat. You just will. If you are not losing fat over time, that means that for whatever reason, and there could be tons of reasons, you're not in a calorie deficit. Now, granted, this is where the internet confuses people. It truly is as simple as I've just said. Anyone that has ever lost weight in the history of mankind has lost weight because whatever they did, however they ate, caused them to be in a calorie deficit. The method that you use to achieve your calorie deficit is what differs person to person based on preferences. So, for example, you know how you'll be in the office and there'll be someone there talking about how they lost weight with Weight Watchers or Slimming World or keto or whatever. If they successfully lost weight, it's because whatever method they were using to eat put them in a calorie deficit. But often these methods are non-sustainable because it required eliminating something permanently, and it didn't teach them how to actually control their body weight for the rest of their life. Once you understand calories in and calories out and understanding energy balance that way, you will be able to control your body weight forever. It doesn't mean that you'll never gain weight again, because you will, but you'll be okay with that because you also know how to bring it back down with no stress without it being this horrible lifelong endeavor like it was for me as a young kid, or for like a lot of people that it is now. Fat loss is something I'm very passionate about because it's something that people get very confused about because of just people on social media trying to sell you a dream because they trust me, right? Me telling you guys that calorie deficit is how you lose weight is a lot harder to sell you than if I was to say, right, I've got this secret fat loss blueprint, and it's the only way you can lose weight, and if you don't do it, you're going to die, and link in the bio, buy it. That's what a lot of people do. They've got this special method, they want you to adhere to this special method, it looks fancy, it looks pretty, they're eating meat off a chopping board, whatever. But that's just not how it works. All you've got to do is be in a calorie deficit. You can eat whatever you like, provided at the end of the day, the amount of calories you ate put you into a calorie deficit. Now, of course, there is going to be more nuance to this. For example, if you've got 1,800 calories to play with for the day, you could theoretically have 1,800 calories worth of McDonald's and lose weight. You could, and people have. The problem with the actual practical application of that is that that's not very much food in terms of like volume in your mouth. You can eat a 400 calorie cookie in the next 30 seconds. But if you were to eat 400 calories worth of whole foods, more healthy and nutritious foods, because remember, healthy and nutritious doesn't have much to do, if anything to do, with your body weight. You can, if you overate healthy, nutritious foods, you would still end up fat. It's quite hard to do that because of how filling they are, but you still could, theoretically. Because it's all, at the end of the day, this is all a numbers game. That's all we're doing here. So, assuming you're just starting off right, the number one tip you've got, and again, this is stuff that people will push back on because they're like, oh, I don't want to do that, that's hard, and it might be, but it's the most it's the most what's the word? Foolproof. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the most foolproof way of doing it. Learn to track your calories using whatever calorie tracking app you want to use. I've used MyFitnessPal for the best part of a decade. At this point, I don't really need to use it because I can just eyeball things and know what's in them. But use a calorie tracking app. That'll give you an idea of how many calories are in things to begin with, because that's step one. The next problem that people encounter is they start tracking and they're like, I'm eating X amount of calories. I'm not losing weight. Why? And it's because you're not eating X amount of calories because you've yet to really learn how to track your calories accurately. Calorie tracking in and of itself is quite a skill. It's a lesson that you have to learn over time and how to track different things and how to be consistent and to make sure that you're actually doing it properly. Sometimes for example, sometimes you'll scan a barcode of a product and it'll just give you the calories that way, but you won't realize it's incorrect, or it'll bring up the wrong entry, or you won't realize that what you've got is actually heavier than what it's actually supposed to be, or you've got there's just so many what ifs here, right? For example, anyone that's tracked their calories for a long time gets used to setting the serving size to being a gram and then the number of servings to being however much the food weighs, which again, get yourself a digital food scale, it'll make life way easier. Weigh your meats and all that sort of thing raw. We will see people arguing about whether to weigh them raw or cooked. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, and therefore you'll choose whichever one is easiest. And the one that is typically easiest for the majority of people is weigh them raw. The reason you want to weigh your meats raw is because, good lord, it will be annoying fishing cooked food out of finished product, especially if you're a normal person who isn't eating chicken and rice. Because once again, you do not have to be eating chicken and rice to be losing weight. I had a pizza yesterday. It was a 500 calorie pizza. I woke up a pound lighter today because I'm currently dieting. Because that 500 calorie pizza fit within my calories. That's just how this works. Granted, it wasn't very much food. It wasn't a very large dinner because it's a pizza, and I could have had 500 calories of something more healthy, more nutritious, and it would have amounted to more total food. And that's why a lot of people will also struggle to stick to the amount of calories that they need to eat, because they'll be choosing this, it's called if it fits your macros approach, where they can theoretically eat anything, but they're not eating enough healthy, nutritious stuff to actually keep them full, and they end up snacking more. So step one, track your calories, and over time, you'll get good at tracking your calories. Give yourself an amount of calories. So typically, just use a calorie calculator online. No calorie calculator is going to be 100% accurate because they never can be, because you could weigh and be exactly the same stats and measurements as the geezer sitting next to you, and you'd still have different calorie requirements. The only way to figure this out for yourself is trial and error. And a lot of people are not going to like half of what I'm saying because they're like, oh, these things take time. And yeah, they do. But time is going to pass no matter how you do it. It is October 3rd as we speak, and I blinked and it was April just now. In 6 months, you can absolutely change your life. If you are watching this right now and you are overweight and you don't like the fact that you are overweight and you want to do something about it, in 6 months' time, you can be a different person. You absolutely can. You just have to make the decision to make that happen. Back to the original comment about you can't stick to a gym regimen. Why? Because you think you can't? Because you think you're busy? I promise you there is some way that you can fit it in. You don't need that long. I promise you, right? This comment comes from Instagram. How much time did you spend on Instagram? Show me your screen time. You do not have to be in the gym all day, every day. You don't have, when it comes to fat loss, you don't have to go to the gym at all, fun fact. It's just that going to the gym is going to build you some muscle, which means that when you've lost the fat, you'll like how you look a little bit better. A lot of the times people have an image in their head of how they'd like to look after they've lost some fat, but the image that's in their head is somebody that has more muscle than they currently have. So back to how do you lose weight? Step one, track your calories. Step two, track an amount of calories that you're going to eat consistently. Step three, weigh yourself frequently. Now, again, this is about being non-emotional when it comes to the numbers that you're going to see on the scale. A lot of people will only weigh themselves once a week and get themselves really stressed out about that. So the way that you weigh yourself most accurately, by the way, hardwood floor, first thing upon waking up, after going to the toilet, not wearing anything, before eating and drinking. That's your most accurate weighing you can do. Then I use an app called Happy Scale. It's free, or you could just use a pen and paper if you like, but you want to track your weigh-ins, right? So this app, I don't know if that's going to be back to front because it's mirrored, but basically, it'll give me my moving average. So it'll tell me over time what my average weigh-in is. The more data you give it, the more accurate it's going to be, because that's how data and numbers work. The problem with weighing yourself once per week is that there are tons of things that can affect the number that you see on the scale that are not just have or haven't you lost fat that week. And this is why things like Slimming World, weighing yourself in front of other people in the evening, fully clothed, after drinking and eating that day, are not necessarily accurate, because people will do silly things to artificially manipulate that result. My mom and her friend spent years going to Slimming World, and they're both still overweight. And what they would do is, on the day of a weigh-in, they would eat like next to nothing to artificially lower the number they were going to see on the scale, because Everything you eat weighs something. Everything you drink weighs something. Whether or not you've been to the toilet weighs something. There's tons of factors. And to see through these factors and actually get the trend as to whether or not you're losing weight, you want to track more frequently. Because that way, you don't just see the anomaly weigh in, you see the consistent trend. And you want to be trending downwards. Weight loss can be pretty quick. You could lose 1% or 2% of your total body weight per week, every week, pretty handily, should you wish to. Now, again, there are different approaches to this. I'm very data driven and very, I guess, no bullshit about this. There are a lot of people that will like mollycoddle people's emotions, and this is just a different kind of like personal trainer or coach that you were or are. Again, I was a personal trainer, a fat loss coach, all that sort of thing. Don't do that anymore because I just do game collecting as a job now. But still, this was my job, and I'm very good at losing fat. I lost 25 kilos last year. I've lost 5 kilos in the last 2 weeks because it's just manipulate fat loss at the end of the day. If you remove all of your emotional attachment to food and emotional attachment to the number that you see on the scale and all that sort of thing, and I know that's really hard to do, but if you can just do that, you can change your body very quickly. The flip side and the alternative, I know other coaches, and I'm not saying this is wrong, I'm just saying it's different, is you can take a more emotionally sensitive approach to this perhaps, but typically that comes with a slower result. So for example, I'll see people talking about how the clients lost 3 kilos in 6 months. That's a good result, sure, but it's a slow result. It just is. You can lose 3 kilos in a few weeks if you wanted to. It just depends on how hard you're willing to go and how non-emotionally attached to things you're going to be. It's just a case of that. So very simply, track your calories, track an amount of calories. If your body weight is not coming down, you have 2 options from there. And these are the only 2 options you have. And again, how you go about achieving said options is up to you. Option number 1, you eat less food. Option number 2, you move more. Your movement is a modifier for how many calories out you are expending. The thing is that it is a lot easier to simply not eat the calories than it is to attempt to burn them off. You should create your calorie deficit through the food that you're putting in your mouth. Your exercise, your cardio, your movement should just be a modifier that helps you expend some more. Because you could walk on the treadmill, you could go running, you could go walking outside, you could do cardio or whatever for an hour or 2 and only burn a few hundred calories. You could eat that few hundred calories back in seconds, and trust me, people did. As a kid, I was heavily into martial arts. I did 5 days a week, most weeks. And once I was done my 2 hours of karate or whatever I was doing, I'd be sweating like a pig. I'd be nearly dead because I was a little fat kid. My mum would then take me to the chip shop and buy me a doner burger. I might have burned 200 calories in that 2 hours I was at karate, but then I ate 700 calories worth of doner burger. So I'm net up 500 calories and it completely defeated the point. And this is something that a lot of people do. They'll go to the gym, they'll do the cardio, they'll treat themselves and then be like, right, I deserve this, and they'll have a donut. And it's like, well, now you've just undone what you did in the gym because you've ate those calories back. Therefore, create your calorie deficit through the food you put in. When it comes to your calorie tracking apps, the only thing you need to be paying attention to of the numbers it gives you is the amount of calories left in a day you have. Don't let MyFitnessPal or any of the other calorie tracking apps tell you how many calories to eat, and completely ignore how many calories it says you've burned through movement. The only data you need to be tracking is how many calories are you eating and what is your average weigh-in over time. So for example, I weigh myself every morning. I get out of bed, go to the toilet, brush my teeth, all that sort of thing, step on the scale, put the number into my app, and then just go about my day. And that way I can see whether or not I'm moving in the right direction. And if I'm not moving in the right direction, whether that current phase be up or down, I then just manipulate my calories so that it is happening. Again, you just have to be non-emotional. People will get really annoyed. They'll eat X amount of food, won't like the number they're seeing on the scale, and be like, this is not right, I'm broken, my hormones, this and that. 9 times out of 10, it's because they're not tracking something accurately, because again, tracking is a skill. They've not considered the fact that they're putting in a bucket load of oil. They're not considering the fact that every time they go downstairs to say hello to the dog and have a drink, they have a snack from the fridge. They're not considering the fact that, yes, technically a lot of the restaurants that you can go to have their calories on the menu, but the 17-year-old line chef that's in the bag has probably used, 50 grams more butter than he was supposed to use, thus adding tons more calories. There are tons of different things and little ways that things can be inaccurate, and you just have to deal with those because it's life. So, very simply, track your calories, track an amount of calories, get good at tracking calories. That'll take a bit. Over time, if the number on the scale is not coming down and you are being accurate with your calorie tracking, you then have 2 choices. Calories down, eat a bit less, because clearly you were not in a calorie deficit. But one, trust me, every fat loss coach, every fat loss person on the internet has seen this statement 1 million times. I'm in a calorie deficit and I'm not losing weight. No. If you are in a calorie deficit, you are losing weight. If you are not losing weight, you are not in a calorie deficit. Fact. Whether or not that be something that's causing you to, whatever it might be that's causing you to not be in a calorie deficit, is the reason why people hire coaches. Because I get that a lot of this for a brand new person might be a lot to take in. It's a lot to learn, it's a lot to figure out, and it's a lot to try to realize yourself. And that's why people hire coaches, because while this is a very simple calories in and calories out process, the coach can help you work through that nuance that is applicable to you specifically. Because again, everything is very nuanced. It's very easy for right. Here's the disconnect from reality. I'm very aware that it is very easy for me to diet, and I can diet very hard and lose a lot of fat very quickly, because I can eat at the same time every day. I can eat the same thing I want because I never leave this house for the most part. The normal people that have got families and kids and they're not just cooking for themselves and they've got a real job where they go out to work, they don't quite have the level of ease and convenience that I have. That's reality. That is normal. You just then have to apply and create your method of achieving a calorie deficit based on your life. That's where everybody's individual method of creating a calorie deficit differs. So, for example, to some people, intermittent fasting might be a good method to create their calorie deficit. Some people, again, delusional people that don't understand what they're talking about, will say that the reason they lost fat is that they intermittent fasted. No, the reason you lost fat is because you were in a calorie deficit. The method that you used to help achieve your calorie deficit was intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is basically where you give yourself a window of your 24 hours where you simply do not eat. I basically intermittent fast by accident when I'm dieting due to the fact that I sleep a lot more and I get up pretty late. I go probably 17 hours a day where I don't eat because I just don't. But a lot of people in practicality, in a normal situation with a family, children, kids, job, the same thing, job, etc., their version of intermittent fasting is very, very often just skipping breakfast. They get up, they don't have breakfast, and they go about their day, and then all of a sudden work is done, and it's been many hours since they've eaten. That then reduces the amount of calories they can eat. A lot of people be like, I cut out sugar and I lost weight. Here's why. You cut out sugar. What are the highest sugar foods that you're often probably eating? Cereal, donuts, basically higher calorie foods. If you cut out any given macronutrient, you cut out carbs. If you cut out any macronutrient, any of these individual things, you are cutting out things with calories. Every food has calories, everything. Yeah, so no wonder you cut out really high calorie foods and stopped eating them, and now you lost weight. Well done. But what happens when you start eating them again? That's why it's just easier to understand calories in, calories out to begin with. Understand the mechanism rather than living by a method. If you live by a method, you are destined for two things: being unhappy forever on that method, Slimming World, keto, no carb, whatever. Two of those things are kind of the same. Or understand calories in, calories out, understand that you can eat whatever you want within moderation, understanding how to maintain that, and then understanding that when you, here's one people often don't talk about that I'll talk about, is you will gain weight again. A lot of people, when they lose weight, do gain weight again. Usually, as long as they're successful, not anywhere near as much, but they'll gain some, and that's okay, because as humans, you're going to do that. Christmas is around the corner. Most of us, including me, are going to put some weight on over Christmas. Why? Food, and lots of it, social occasions, all that sort of thing. Generally, our day-to-day calorie intake over Christmas period is higher than throughout the rest of the year. We're moving less because the weather goes bad. We have time off work because, well, you guys have time off work because you do. So you move less, you have more opportunity to eat, you probably drink a lot more, you're with your mates a lot more. So your calorie input goes up, your calorie output goes down, you end up in a calorie surplus. So calorie surplus is the opposite to a calorie deficit, and it's the reason why you gain weight in the first place. Anyone that ever got fat was because they spent time in a calorie surplus. And again, I was fat, I've been fat a few times, I've lost fat tons of times, I'm really good at losing fat. So for example, my current diet, I've lost like 5 kilos in the last few weeks just to prepare myself for Christmas, because I know I'm going to put some weight on over Christmas. And that's just fine, because it's all about just being able to control your calories. So for example, once you understand calories in, calories out, you have the power for the rest of your life to never stress about your body weight again, because you have the power to just do what you want. It's like, yeah, I put some weight on, but I'll just spend the next month fixing it. Problem solved. I enjoyed Christmas. I got to do all of the things that I wanted to do without sacrificing the quality of life that I wanted just for the sake of being skinnier. And then later down the line, when things chill out again, you can fix that. Problem solved. So yeah, don't be one of these people that lets your brain and lets emotion and non-physical, to be real with you, non-relevant things tell you why you can't do it, because you absolutely can. Every single one of you
has the power to change your life should you so choose to. You just actually have to make the decision. You're not always going to be motivated. You're not always going to want to. Yesterday, I didn't really fancy going to the gym. It was like 11 o'clock at night when I went. I'd been out all day. I'd been to the cinema. It was late. I was tired because I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but you go to the cinema, you feel pretty tired because you sat in a dark room for a few hours, not moving. It's not exactly conducive to best gym performance. But you get up and you go anyway because it's what you have to do. You only need an hour in the gym, realistically, a few times a week. I promise you, literally, here's something I used to do with clients that were pretty busy, is I'd get them to schedule out their week for me. Like, not just their uptime, schedule your downtime. Show me where hours are not accounted for. So we'd look on a spreadsheet and we'd be like, right, here's sleep, here's work, here's family time. Where can we slot an hour for gym? And do that. Be non-objective. Be objective with it and non-emotional about things, and you will get stuff done. Trust me. Again, there are different approaches to all of this. You can, for example, some people will take the fat loss approach of not tracking their calories and just trying to eat more mindfully and trying to eat just more nutritious and healthy foods, which, as long as that works for you by putting you into a calorie deficit by accident, essentially, yeah, you'll lose fat. And cool. But often it will result in a slower approach because you can't make decisions objectively. When you have numbers and data in front of you, when you have the amount of calories you're putting into your mouth and your body weight movement trend over time in front of you, you can then, without being emotional, objectively make decisions about what to do next to make things happen. Yeah. To anyone that's watched this far, I do have a fat loss guide in my bio that puts everything I've said together in this video quite more succinctly, because I recognise that I've been rambling now for 20 minutes because this is something I'm very passionate about. I used to really, really, really love helping people lose fat. Again, my approach is not for everybody because my approach is the data-driven and non-emotional thing. Some people struggle with that, and if they do, they should seek help from somebody that has a different approach to fat loss than me. Granted, remember, the reason everybody ever lost fat was a calorie deficit. It's your approach to creating your deficit that will differ person to person. Some people are not able to emotionally detach and need that sort of more sensitive approach to it. But typically that will come with slower results. It just will. Whereas if you can be non-emotional, you can get there quicker. But some people need to get there slower so that they can learn the habits along the way to maintain it. It's all down to the individual and the nuance of their life. But at the end of the day, you want to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit, you need to be eating less than you're currently eating to maintain your current body weight. Track your calories, track your body weight. If body weight isn't going down, you need to eat less or move more. Keep modifying these different numbers until you're getting the result that you want. It's really that simple. I think that the society has failed us in the fact that if you go up to a random person on the street and ask them how do you lose weight, the answer that comes out of their mouth is very infrequently calorie deficit. More people do understand this now because there are plenty of like social media people with millions of followers that have been shouting calorie deficit from the rooftop for like 5 years. And it's good that a lot of people understand it now, but still not enough because there are still people buying into all these different things that are just at the end of the day money-making schemes. Places like Slimming World don't really want you to succeed because they want you to keep paying the membership. They want you to keep coming back. That's why they don't teach you the tools that you actually need to keep it off forever, and they just teach you their weird system rather than the real system. They teach you their sins system rather than if you just understood calories, you wouldn't need to go and you could just eat whatever you wanted and figure that out. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful to someone. And again, apologies to the gaming lot that are not asked, but I did put this at the end of the video so that you guys didn't have to listen to it if you didn't want to. And this video went on for quite a while. Yeah, I'll see you guys later. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. And if you're somebody that wants to lose fat, consider my gym programs or my fat loss guide all in the bio. It's all written about as extensively as it could possibly be, with everything you could possibly need to refer back to rather than having to listen to me ramble potentially incoherently for 20 minutes. See you in a bit.